And there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another fantastic installment of Cowboy State Politics Live. From very high above, all the puerile, insipid, and sycophantic imposters masquerading as media, this is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the depths of the Middle Swamp in Wyoming's capital of Cheyenne. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy, snowy, cold Wednesday from the Middle Swamp. We are officially halfway through the 2025 legislative session. All of the House bills, well, I should say tomorrow, all of the House bills will be through and will be ready for crossover. And of course, the legislature is not meeting on Monday. It's the mid-session recess or whatever the kids are calling it these days. But we've had no shortage whatsoever of sophistic political rhetoric. Now, by sophistic, I mean sophistry, which is political speak that doesn't really have any basis in logic or reality. It's just what these politicians say. And that's where we're going to begin this morning, with an article in the Cowboy entitled, "Legislator Concerned Property Taxes Will Hurt Wyoming's Future Generations." Correct me if I'm wrong, but the high level of property taxes that Wyoming citizens are paying right now is definitely hurting future generations, but the one that you should be chiefly concerned with is the right now. Wyoming citizens across the state of Wyoming have been paying double-digit increases in property taxes since probably 2019. And, you hear a lot of these legislators, including the one we're going to talk about here in just a second, say that, well, Wyoming pays the lowest taxes of any state. Well, the truth is, my friends, that liars use statistics and statistics lie. Or is it statistics lie and liars use statistics? In any case, you can make numbers say anything that you want, but that doesn't allow you to escape the reality of what's going on. There are many Wyoming citizens who are having a huge difficulty paying their property taxes, and they have been for a very long time. Now, remember that property taxes, and there was I did a great interview with Scott Clem, former state house representative and current Campbell County commissioner. And one of the things that he goes into great detail talking about is that property taxes don't go to state government. Those stay specifically with your county, and most of them go to schools. So really, when you're talking about property taxes, you should blame your county, because they could lower property taxes tomorrow. The thing is, they're not going to, because, the more money you have, the more you can spend. And let's be honest, one of the chief things that politicians, especially leftist politicians, are really good at is spending your money. And of course, they can't give you a tax break because that would mean less money for them, less money for their own little pet project, less money for them to tantalize you into voting for them. But not dum-dum. By dum-dum, of course, I'm referring to Representative J.D. Williams of Lusk. Now, this guy, he is, if you watch his videos on Facebook, he sounds like he is the most astute of astute representatives. But the truth is, when you listen to him on the floor, he sounds like a timid mouse. But he wasn't so timid talking to Trotsky Wolfson of the Cowboy. And I quote, It's one thing to cut money for going to a budget, but it's a whole other task to figure out what money doesn't need to be spent on anymore. That's the puzzle legislators at the Wyoming legislature are trying to figure out in their pursuit to cut property taxes, which significantly increased in certain parts of the state after the COVID-19 pandemic, but have since returned to historical norms. My friends, that is an out-and-out bullcrap lie. Property taxes have not returned to normal. I don't know what Trotsky Wolfson is trying to tell you, but he's not telling you the truth. Property taxes across the state of Wyoming have increased exponentially. Let me ask you something, my friends. Do you think your own personal property taxes have, quote, returned to historic norms? Do you really think that that's reality, or are you paying a significantly more higher amount in property taxes than you were in 2019? I don't know where Trotsky Wolfson is getting this, but it's complete and utter bullcrap. And I continue. State Representative J.D. Williams is very concerned that his fellow lawmakers aren't considering Wyoming's future generations with the way they are making property tax cuts in this year's legislative session. Williams said in a Monday Facebook post after conducting a recent town hall, he found that many of his constituents believe property tax relief to be more of an election year talking point than something that will help their local communities. I know many of J.D. Williams' constituents, and I can tell you for a fact that a lot of them don't think that the high property taxes they've been paying since 2019, 6 years, is an election year ploy. What they do see is when they walk into the treasurer's office and have to cut a check for double-digit increases in their property taxes, that's not historic norms. But I continue. Property tax revenue goes to local schools and governments. Now, that part is true, including special districts that support local hospitals and ambulance services, weed and pest, and cemeteries, among others. Williams said seniors came to his meeting inquiring about the future of local senior centers. Well, as I said, my friends, that county commissioners can lower property taxes tomorrow, but they won't because of all of these special districts. And there's only one question you need to ask anybody who is opposed to property tax relief. Just one question. That's all you need. And you need to kind of preface it a little bit. Say, well, my property taxes have gone up exponentially since 2019. In some counties, property tax revenue has doubled. So the only question that you need to ask your local legislators and your county commissioners is, well, you got all this this increase in property tax revenue, all this money coming into county coffers. Where did all that money go? Where is it? What did you do with all of the money that you stole from Wyoming citizens? Now, they're probably not going to be able to give you a straight answer. Politicians never do. But the real honest answer is they spent it on things like $3 million flower pots. That's what happened in Sheridan County. Sheridan County commissioners thought that they needed a flower garden by the courthouse, which, by the way, is the ugliest flower garden that I've ever seen. But they didn't stop there. No, they had to spend more money on statues to beautify their beautifying project of a flower pot that's right next to the courthouse, which, by the way, government doesn't have any business in beautifying the city. Oh, well, I mean, if you have the extra cash, I guess you could, but that's not the proper role of government. The proper role of government is to handle only those few things that are enumerated in the Constitution. Police, fire. Might be nice to have some streets and to be able to administer the city. But beyond that, that's not the proper role of government. Government should not be in the business of being a landlord, nor should it be in the business of providing all of these extraneous services that J.D. Williams is so concerned about. Now, here is where Trotsky and J.D. Williams really go off the rails. Listen to this. Quote, "A number of backfill options have been proposed to partially support these entities if any of the property tax bills pass into law." Listen to this. Tax cut detractors have argued that backfills are unsustainable in the long run. So, first of all, tax cut detractors, that is, people who think that we shouldn't cut property taxes at all, are absolutely forgetting about the 8 hardship counties in Wyoming. In Wyoming, there are 8 counties, and I'm probably not going to get them all, but we're talking about like Washakie, Niobrara, Weston, Crook, Goshen, Counties that don't bring in enough property taxes to even fund the necessary functions of government. And in Wyoming, we have an interesting system because we have what are called recapture districts. Teton County is one of those. As you heard Scott Clem say in the interview that was published on the podcast, that Teton County brings in more money in property tax revenue than does Campbell County in minerals. Think about that for a second. Well, that money is sent to the state, and then the state divvies that up among the counties. But there are 8 counties that are going to be severely impacted by any sort of tax relief. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't give people a break on their property taxes. What that is saying, however, is that we have to find a way to fix that. In the House of Representatives, Representative John Baer added an amendment to the supplemental budget that would provide a 75% backfill to those 8 counties. And so the 50% reduction in property taxes is going to be backfilled 75% to those 8 counties. Not the rest of the counties, not all 23, just those 8. Now let me continue with Williams and the cow pie. And I quote, Williams said his constituents determined that backfill is not sustainable and is only a Band-Aid on a very large self-inflicted wound of property tax cuts. So giving people a break on their property tax, which, by the way, all of that money belongs to Wyoming citizens. It's not the government's money. The government doesn't have their own money. It's all ours. In addition, none of the backfill options proposed to support local schools. Now, here is where this article really goes off the rails. Now, let me just read that one more time. In addition, none of the backfill options proposed will go to support local schools. From Williams, these rural schools are big employers in small towns. It's a social gathering place for the whole community, Williams told the Cowboy State Daily. It's a lack of understanding of our culture when you attack that. Well, the problem is that let me repeat that, none of the proposed bills or the supplemental budget or anything that is coming out of this year's legislative session is going to impact schools one iota. Not at all. There isn't a single school in Wyoming that is going to receive less money than they did last year. In fact, Representative John Baer, chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, said as much on the floor of the House yesterday. Here he is saying it.
But the point there that needs to be taken home and out to the public, and I want to say this clearly to both this body and to the public, that our schools are going to be 100% funded. They are going to be able to spend their block grant, and they are going to be funded 100%. Not one school is going to have any less money next year or the year after that based on the actions of this body, including the passing of a school choice bill.
All right, so hold on right there. So John Baer says not one school is going to have any less money, including all of the tax cuts that are being proposed this year. J.D. Williams sat on the floor of the House of Representatives. I know he was sitting there because I watched him from the gallery, and he heard all of this. He's one of the people that participated in this entire supplemental budget, and he knows for a fact that not a single school is going to receive one dime less than they did last year. But it's more than that. Let's listen to the rest of what John Baer has to say.
We are funding it all. And remember, if a student happens to leave the public schools, they still have a 3-year running average where they get paid for that student. So honestly, we're going to have a bonus within our education funding based on the way we fund education. And I will remind this body of one other thing. In this budget, your JAC brought it to you and you approved it. An ECA, an external cost adjustment, which included raises for non-professional staff and professional staff. So we're not only funding it, we're funding it to a higher level than we've ever done before.
Aha! J.D. Williams, and we should probably change his name to Lying Dum-Dum J.D. Williams. Not only are schools not going to receive one dime less than they did last year, they're actually getting more money. That there's a pay raise for teachers and other administrative staff. Now, the way it works in Wyoming, and this is something you have to understand, even though the supplemental budget does contain a pay raise for teachers and for staff and all of that, that's entirely left up to the school districts themselves, because schools are funded in a block grant. And even though the legislature says, this money is for pay raises, this money is for transportation or whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean that school districts have to spend that money in those places. So if you're a teacher in some county in Wyoming and you don't get a raise after the supplemental budget is passed, that's not the fault of the legislature. That's the fault of your local school district. But I think the larger point here is that representatives like J.D. Williams can't help themselves but lie to their constituents. And let me just repeat this one more time for you. Quote, "In addition, none of the backfill options proposed will go to local schools. That's because they don't need any more money and they're not getting a reduction anyway. These rural schools are big employers. It's a social gathering place. It's a lack of understanding of our culture when you attack that." My point being is that J.D. Williams knows for a fact that not a single dime is being cut from local schools. But that doesn't stop him from talking to the Cowboy. In fact, he went on. Quote, if you scroll down to the end of the article, Williams also said that people asked him if the majority in the House is really interested in addressing property tax relief, or is it being used as a political bludgeon to help them stay in power? Good question, Williams said in response. This is in reference to the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, a group Williams is not a member of, that has urgently pushed for property tax cuts. Now, so the point here is that Williams is trying to portray this as just a political tool. Well, there is a reason why the vast majority of the Wyoming caucus is no longer in the legislature. It's because they, by and large, refuse to provide any sort of meaningful property tax relief. Oh, I know that they say, well, we passed that 4% cap. That's property tax relief. That was Poison Barry Crago's bill. Let me just explain that for a minute. What that says is that your taxes cannot go up any more than 4% year over year. But they capped property taxes at the peak. So, in other words, your property taxes under Barry Crago's bill, and the one that was passed last year, will never go down. It is a guarantee that they will go up. And in fact, your property taxes under that plan will double in less than 20 years. Double, my friends. So the long and the short of it here is that Dum Dum knows exactly what's happening in the Wyoming legislature. He's just refusing to be honest with his constituents. We shouldn't expect anything less from a leftist like J.D. Williams. But anyway, he's lying, and that's what he does best. We'll have more after the break. Christmas is over, and all of the fun holiday cheer has been had. And what are we all left with? Frigid Wyoming weather. Below freezing temperatures that you still have to go out in. That's right, you do have to go back to work at one point or another. And not to scare you, but think about this. Every single morning, you get to scrape the ice off of your windshield. Now, while I can't do anything with that, I can make sure that your feet stay nice and toasty warm while you're doing it. All you have to do is order a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. And to get you a pair of them, go to the website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you're not going to be disappointed. Wyoming is one of the most sought-after places to live. There's a lot of people that want to move to our great state. And if you're thinking about selling your house to one of them, you need a real estate agent that you can trust. That agent is Rebecca Bextel at Compass Real Estate. She's lived in Jackson for almost 20 years and has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market. Last year, she sold almost $25 million worth of property. So if you're thinking of buying or selling, give Rebecca a call. Her phone number is 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Cowboy state politics is only going to get stronger. If you hadn't noticed, the program is continuing to expand from every county in this state to every state in this country. It's Cowboy State Politics. Welcome back to the program, my friends. David Iverson behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone, documented to be almost always right 98.9% of the time. Now, you can listen to Cowboy State Politics on YouTube, Facebook, X, Rumble, and there's a new podcast channel. If you miss Cowboy State Politics Live, you can always go back and listen to previous episodes. The way that you find those is go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. Look up at the top. There's a link that says live replays, and you can just listen to all of the episodes of Cowboy State Politics Live until your heart's content. We begin this segment of the program, and this is a new segment that we're going to start on the show, and it's Moments of Redcoat Lunacy, courtesy of the Wyoming Freedom Caucus. Now, if you haven't noticed, they put out some hilarious videos, and I just can't help myself. So today's moment of Redcoat Lunacy is Lloyd Larsen. Now, I have to kind of set the stage for you a little bit. The bill that was being discussed was to prevent taxpayer dollars to go to lewd and obscene events. Now, if you remember last year, the Wyoming Department of Health gave $3,000 to what was advertised as a booze-filled R-rated night of drag queens. If you want to see the advertisement, go to cowboystatepolitics.com. Go to the show notes page, and you'll have to go to 2024 and scroll down a little bit, and you can see the advertisement and how they monkeyed with it. But the truth is, and it doesn't matter how you try to spin this, but taxpayer money went to a drag show, a booze-filled R-rated drag show, and that's how it was advertised. Well, in response to that bill, our good buddy Lloyd Larsen got up there, and he said that, well, Jesus healed lepers, and he held out with prostitutes, and that's why we have to continue to fund sexually explicit drag shows. Listen to this. It's absolutely incredible.
I go through and I read all of those things that...
Well, hold on just a second. I'll have to get that one for you. Apparently, I screwed up on the... we'll do the moment of Redcoat Lunacy in just a second. Hurrying to get the program done. Here, just a second. I think this is it. Hold on here. Anyway, let's continue with the program, and then I'll get this soundbite for you. But my point is, my friends, that there are a whole bunch of crazy things that are said on the floor of the House of Representatives, most of which you would be shocked to hear any of your legislators actually utter. And it's incredible, my friends, simply because when they come back and talk to you, they would never admit that they said, well, Jesus healed lepers and hung out with prostitutes. And so that's the reason why we have to continue to give taxpayer dollars, your money, by the way, to people that are going to spend it on drag shows. Now, I'm sure Drag Show Clark over in Sweetwater County has a different view of this. Of course, the reason why he has the nickname Drag Show Clark is he donated to an explicit drag show. Absolutely true, my friends. Let's see here. Copy and replace. Okay, now let's give it a try and see if we can actually get the right soundbite here. All right, one more time. Lloyd Larsen, we got to fund drag shows because Jesus healed prostitutes. Here we go.
I really support what the sponsor of this bill is trying to do.
I messed it up again. Live radio. Anyway, so we'll try the moment of Redcoat Lunacy on tomorrow's installment of the program. Can't believe I screwed that up. Live radio. Hey, what are you going to do? Well, next up on the program, The Turkey Vulture, the Wyoming Tribune Eagle, has another interesting article. This one's entitled, Wyoming Hospitals Oppose Hospital Price Transparency Bill. No kidding. I wonder why they would oppose such an Looney Tune idea. Why would they not want you to know what they're going to charge you for that MRI? To the Turkey Vulture, and I quote, in September, Cheyenne resident Nanette Hernandez shared her story with the Wyoming Tribune Eagle of how her life was upended in 2021 after she got COVID. She became burdened with insurmountable hospital debt. Now, she says, she can only pray that things will get better for her. A bill currently making its way through the Wyoming legislature gives Hernandez hope, and others won't have to go through what she has in the past few years. House Bill 121 is intended to bring more transparency to the way hospitals share prices for services with their customers. The legislation is sponsored by Representative Daniel Singh, who said he believes this is a common sense bill that will protect Wyoming citizens. Currently, there is no state law enforcing hospital pricing transparency. That's done at the federal level. In 2021, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services issued a final rule to improve transparency with healthcare costs by requiring hospitals to make their prices readily available for consumers. But it would seem that hospitals are kind of opposed to this. Quote, additionally, Fisher said that full price transparency could eventually lead to greater competition in the market. Would that be such a bad thing? My friends, competition breeds lower prices. And what the hospital is arguing here is they don't want to have to tell you what the price is, because the guy down the street could start his own hospital and charge you a lesser price. Incentivizing healthcare providers to reduce their costs and attract more customers. If this happens, Fisher said customers that provide employee insurance plans may even begin to reward employees who find the best deal when receiving care. I can't believe they actually printed this thing in the Wyoming Turkey Vulture. Quote, when people can see that they can literally pay cash for an MRI, and the lowest price we've seen in other states is $250 to $300 for an MRI, no one will tolerate being charged over $1,000. And they'd be furious with their insurance plan if they negotiated a $6,000 bill for an MRI of the same quality, Fisher said. Singh related the subject to shopping at the grocery store. Quote, if you go to the grocery store, you're not going to check out eggs and not know directly how much you're paying for the eggs, right? There may be variance in prices, but everyone has to be upfront about how much the eggs cost. They have to put the price of the eggs on the shelf. There's absolutely no reason whatsoever that Wyoming hospitals shouldn't have to do the same thing. But the reason why they don't is so that they can charge you whatever they want, and because you have no recourse to it, you've got to pay them. My friends, being your illustrious host at one time had a significant hospital bill, and I had some really serious. I had a heart attack and almost died. So, I had some pretty high medical bills. Well, when I went into the hospital, no one told me what the price was, and so I had no way of knowing. Now, it's not that I could go shop around, but think about this, right? If you get prescribed an MRI, and you have no idea how much it costs, there's no way for you to shop around. There's no way for you to find the best deal, and so you're just stuck paying for it. You don't have any recourse whatsoever. And hospitals, specifically the one that the Wyoming Turkey Vulture was talking to, the reason why they don't want price transparency is so that they can gouge you, so that you have no recourse and you got to pay whatever it is that they're charging. It's a no-brainer why Wyoming hospitals are opposed to this. Absolutely incredible, my friends. Let's go ahead and take another break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about an issue that's happening in Teton County. Seems there's a little bit of leaking going on. Too bad we don't have an illegal immigration bill, isn't it? More after the break. You can listen to Cowboy State Politics Live every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. on the Independence Network. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics.
Concerned about the future of Wyoming, but unsure how to help? Honor Wyoming is giving you the chance to create real, lasting influence. And it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. The Honor Wyoming Bill Tracker is designed to empower Wyoming voters. We're cutting through the noise and equipping you with all the info you need to keep tabs on Wyoming lawmakers, as well as the tools to take action on the issues that matter to you most. Keeping a close eye on key legislation in Cheyenne, we've made it easy to stay informed by providing real-time bill updates and timely take action alerts. Our one-click links make it easy to email key lawmakers at the right time. All you have to do is click and your voice will be heard. Ensuring lawmakers are listening to the people they serve year-round. Protecting the Wyoming way isn't a spectator sport, and voting is only half the story. Get involved today and do your part. With the Honor Wyoming Bill Tracker, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3.
Welcome back to the program. David Iverson, Cowboy State Politics Live, Wyoming's most listened to political program. Welcome back to the program, my friends. If you want to be part of the show, the phone lines are open. The phone number here in the Swamp Studio is 307-374-8989. If there's something you've got on your mind that you want to talk about, go ahead and give me a call, 307-374-8989. Now, a while ago on the podcast, I brought to you the story of how the Teton County Sheriff, his name is Matt Carr, was letting illegal immigrants go. And I'm going to revisit that story again so we can get a fuller picture, because it seems to be developing today. Well, actually, it started developing yesterday. As you know, ICE is conducting raids across the country to round up illegal aliens and deport them. Well, it appears that there's a little leaking going on in Teton County. Here's a piece from Fox News yesterday when they were talking about the leaks in Teton County. Here it is.
Talk about the great job his borders are, Tom Homan is doing. Well, he's got a stern warning, Homan does, over some leaked information about those raids where they go in and they round up the violent illegals. Worst go first. Watch.
We think it's coming from inside. Some of the information we're receiving tends to lead toward the FBI. But I talked to the Deputy Attorney General all this weekend. They've opened up a criminal investigation, and they have promised that not only this person lose their job and lose their pension, they won't go to jail. They won't criminally prosecute. It's just not, giving the bad guys a heads up so they can escape apprehension. Right? We're arresting, giving, the Venezuelan gang a heads up so we can't arrest them. You're putting officers' lives at risk. This is not a game.
Ari, I don't want to take this too far, but if you work against the federal government to protect its citizens, that sounds like treason.
And this actually happened in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, just this past week, where a newspaper had somebody tell them that there was going to be an ICE raid, and the newspaper went, and before the raid even took place, started interviewing people saying, have you seen ICE? We hear they're coming. And they printed it in the paper before the raid took place. If it was a military deployment, what would we think about that? So yeah, this is tricky business when this stuff gets made public, when it leaks. It's a police operation, and you put the ICE agents in physical danger when you leak this information. If people think they're coming and they're going to take extraordinary action to protect themselves. There's a lot to dig into here, and Tom Homan's right to dig.
Yeah, when he was on this program last week, Tom Homan said these are intelligence leaks. That's what he called them, leaks of intel. I mean, that's working against the American government. And talk about risk. Oftentimes, these are residential areas. You're risking American citizens' lives, too.
Yeah. Okay, all right. That's enough of that. So, in other words, somebody leaked to the Jackson Hole News and Guide that there was going to be an ICE raid. The Jackson Hole News and Guide immediately went to interviewing people that they know, apparently, are illegal immigrants before the raid ever happened. Now, we know that that Teton County Sheriff Matt Carr has admitted that if he doesn't have a signed warrant by a judge, he's going to let illegal aliens go. And like I said, I'm going to do a podcast episode about this whole thing. I've got some video of Matt Carr actually saying that, so you can listen to him in his own words. But it's officials in Teton County working against the ICE and the Department of Homeland Security and everybody who's trying to round up illegal aliens. Now, wouldn't it be handy if we had an anti-illegal immigration bill? Too bad the Senate killed Senate File 124. It would have been a great bill to combat a lot of what's going on, specifically what happened in Teton County. But you have the ultra super conservative Wyoming Senate to thank for that. Yeah, Senators Bo Beitman and Tim Salazar and Tara Nethercott voted against that bill because, they were just too tired. And it was too late at night for them to actually do their job and work on the bill. I just wasn't ready for prime time, even though the bill had already gone through 2 committees and they had 2 more readings of the bill to work on it and improve it, which, of course, is their job. But, what do I know? The Wyoming Senate is super ultra conservative, or so we've been told by a number of different people. The truth is, the Wyoming Senate is not all that conservative. This isn't the first thing that they've killed the CO2 bill, and I'm sure there's much more coming in the antics of the Wyoming Senate. Moving on to a little bit of national news, Venezuela has said that they're going to file a corruption complaint in the United States against opposition for the misuse of USAID funds. You heard that right, my friends. A foreign government, a socialist foreign government, is going to file a corruption complaint inside the United States because we're rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse with USAID. From Breitbart News, and I quote, Attorney General of Venezuela, Tariq William Saab, announced on Monday that his office will file a formal complaint in the United States against members of the Venezuelan establishment opposition for the alleged embezzlement of USAID humanitarian aid funds that, according to him, were used to conspire against the socialist regime. Saab, in remarks shared with the regime's communication minister, Freddy Nunez, during the latest broadcast of his show Cable a Tierra, or Grounding Wire, said that the socialist regime will request the international cooperation of the U.S. to extradite several opposition leaders, including former interim president Juan Guaido, who lives in exile in Florida after being deported from Colombia in 2023. The attorney general accused Guaido and opposition politicians such as David Schmaltzky, Carlos Vecchio, and Julio Borges, and Leopoldo Lopez of corruption. According to Saab, the individuals allegedly stole millions of dollars in USAID funds meant to support migrants and rescue democracy. Now, that is the point I was driving at. The socialists in Venezuela are worried about protecting democracy. Now, I'm going to take this in a little bit different direction than you think. While it's interesting that the socialists down in Venezuela are worried about the embezzlement of USAID funds, which I would argue is the whole point behind USAID, is so that U.S. taxpayer dollars can be embezzled. But it's the Venezuelans that are worried about protecting democracy. Now, democracy, as we all know, and if you're a longtime listener of Cowboy State Politics, you've heard me say this a lot, that democracy is the worst form of government. It's mob rule. And pretty much every time it's been tried, it really has turned into a horrible experiment in totalitarianism. You can look throughout history, every single time socialism or Marxism or whatever you want to call it has been tried, it's resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands. And over the world, it's probably responsible for the deaths of over 20 million people. But it is democracy that the socialists are worried about. Now, when you hear people in the United States use the term democracy, they don't really mean one person, one vote. Though if we went that way, it probably would end up in socialism or Marxism. What they are referring to is their democracy. What they being the leftists in the United States, what they are trying to turn our country into, one of mob rule. The truth is, my friends, we live in a representative constitutional republic. We don't live in a democracy. We certainly don't live in one that the Venezuelans think we do, nor are any of the leftists. So, fascinating development with the USAID funds. The Democrats have released a target map of state legislatures in an effort to fight MAGA extremism, the MAGA extremism of Donald Trump. Again, from Breitbart, and I quote, Democrats hoping to fight so-called MAGA extremism unveiled their target map for state legislatures on Tuesday. The Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee said its 2025-26 map pinpoints where Democrats must focus our attention and resources to strengthen our firewall in state legislatures and counterbalance the MAGA extremism of Donald Trump and the Republican Congress in Washington. According to Breitbart News, the DLCC is the state Democrat-aligned campaign arm, which in May of 2022 released a target memo lowering expectations for that year. Now, it's interesting they used the word target. You remember, it wasn't that long ago that Sarah Palin issued her memorandum, press release, anyway, showing states that we were targeting. And of course, Republicans were maligned all over the place for just using the word target. Now, apparently, it's okay for the Democrats to do it. Anyway. It's, quote, power building states are Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, and New Hampshire. The DLCC named Maine as a state on its watch list. In a social media post on Tuesday, the DLCC said, we just launched our 2025-2026 target map, pinpointing the state legislatures where Dems must focus our attention and resources to flip chambers blue, strengthen slim majorities, pick up seats, protect the Democrat governor veto pens, and block GOP gains. Democrats burned through more than $2.1 billion trying to defeat President Trump. Think about that. $2.1 billion to try to defeat our president, Donald Trump. That is an incredible amount of money, my friends. I don't even understand what $1 billion is. And it is absolutely incredible. Kamala Harris, she spent $1 billion, which, by the way, she can't account for most of it. A lot of it went to people like Oprah Winfrey and all the celebrities that she had on stage. But anyway, the Democrats are focusing on state legislatures, and what they're trying to do is prevent what happened in Wyoming. That is a flip of a flip of half of the legislature to conservative control. Now, it's you living in Wyoming, we might say, well, that makes perfect sense. A lot of people that live in Wyoming are conservatives, and so why wouldn't our legislature flip? But make no mistake, the Wyoming caucus, which is now apparently defunct, at least that's what Trotsky in the cow pie says. I don't believe that for a second. They've made serious gains in the Senate, and I think the death of many conservative bills and more to come in the Wyoming Senate is evidence of this. But they are alive and well. It's in Wyoming, it's the liberal Republican establishment that most of them are Democrats. All of the data points to them voting with the Democrats the vast majority of the time. So make no mistake. A lot of what you're seeing happen in the legislature right now, specifically in the Senate, is the Redcoats' attempt to regain power in the 2026 election. Now, Wyoming citizens probably aren't going to let that happen once we finally get tax relief through, but it's going to be a fight. If you thought that there was a ton of money spent in the 2024 election, just wait, my friends. It is going to be a huge amount in 2026. When we come back, we're going to do a little Doge talk. Apparently, Jamie Raskin thinks that we can impeach Elon Musk, because he wasn't elected president. Donald Trump was. And this Doge thing, it's amazing, right? Somebody exposing the waste of our taxpayer dollars. Well, he's the person we have to shut down. We can't have American citizens knowing how their money is spent in Wyoming, outside of Wyoming, anywhere. Got to get rid of Elon Musk. When we come back. You are listening to Cowboy State Politics Live on the Independence Network. You're not going to find a better source of news, information, and entertainment than right here on the Independence Network. Now, we're making a few changes, moving a couple things around, out with the old and in with the new, and that whole spiel. Of course, you could listen to my program, The Ramble Room with Ken Pendergraft, Locked and Loaded with the good Representative Tony Locke from Casper. There's a whole bunch more coming on the Independence Network. Also, don't forget to check out the articles section at the website, independencenetwork.us. It's loaded with op-eds, commentary, and news from all around the Cowboy State. You can listen to the Cowboy State Politics podcast anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest place is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles that I might bring up during the course of a program. That way, if your name is Joe Biden and you can't remember if you had your pudding today, well, I probably can't help you with that, but I can definitely tell you why you should have never ran for president. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program. David Iverson, Cowboy State Politics Live, burning through another busy broadcast hour down in the Middle Swamp. Now, you might ask, why do I call it the Middle Swamp? Well, make no mistake, my friends, though the bureaucracy in the swamp in Cheyenne may be smaller in breadth, it is not smaller in depth. And if you have any question about that, just come and sit in a committee meeting, and you'll see all of the agencies whine and complain about how they don't have enough money, when in fact they've been funded for years by the liberals in the Wyoming legislature to an extent that most of us probably don't understand. The truth is, my friends, the Middle Swamp down here in Cheyenne is just as deep as the one in Washington, D.C. Speaking of Washington, D.C., Jamie Raskin, remember him? He was on the January 6th committee, and he's the rabid liberal that was right by Liz Cheney's side the whole time in the January 6th committee. Well, now he is saying that people have actually been talking about impeaching President Elon Musk. This is fascinating, my friends. And just think about it from a big picture view. Elon Musk was tasked by President Trump to root out waste, fraud, and abuse across the federal government, the Department of Government Efficiency, and that's what he's been doing. All of the headlines this past week about USAID and Samantha Power. By the way, the lady, I almost called her lady. That is a totally inaccurate name for her. Anyway, Samantha Power. Who is she? Well, she is the husband of Cass Sunstein. Cass Sunstein was President Obama's regulatory czar. He's the guy that was in charge of all of the regulations that came out during President Obama's administration. He's also the author of a book called Nudge. Now, this one is fascinating. He claims that you can control people's behavior simply by suggestion, by issuing regulations. You can't, it's going to be more expensive for you to drive a gasoline-powered car, so you should just buy an electric-powered car. It's more expensive for you to put an incandescent light bulb in your house, so we should just make those more expensive, and we should just outlaw them. That way we can get you to do what we want, and you just don't have any choice in the matter. Well, Samantha Power is his wife, and she has been in charge of all of the money laundering that's been happening with USAID. Well, that's one of the things that Elon Musk has rooted out, the billions of dollars that have been wasted there and probably ended up in the pockets of some Democrat politicians. Well, now he is claiming that all of the work that Elon Musk is doing is, he really needs to be prosecuted for. And I've got a soundbite for you. It's kind of long, but I think it's worthy of listening to because there's a number of things in there that I want to point out. Hopefully, I got this soundbite right. You don't have music playing in the background. But anyway, let's give it a try.
Don't control the money of the American people. The United States Congress does that.
Our next guest, Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland, says he has a new legal theory for how Americans can sue Elon.
Okay, now I want you to listen really close to the beginning of this soundbite because I need to point something out to you. So just listen really close.
Musk. Congressman Raskin joins us now.
Welcome, Congressman. I'm loving this theory. It's very interesting take. Explain it to us, how citizens can sue Elon Musk and Doge, and how 18 U.S. Code 1030 can be applied.
Okay, so that guy that you just heard, that's Michael Steele. Michael Steele is a rabid liberal that was at one time masquerading as a Republican. Michael Steele was a one-time chairman of the RNC. He was the chairman of the Republican National Committee, and now he's a rabid Democrat on communist news networks like this one. So keep in mind that a lot of the people that claim to be Republicans, and we've got a lot of this going on in Wyoming, people like Albert Sommers and Drag Show Clark Stith and Tom Walters and Bob Nicholas and Lloyd Larson and all of them, they still claim to be Republican, but they are the furthest thing from it. Anyway, let's go ahead and listen to what Jamie Raskin has to say. We'll listen to as much as we can handle anyway.
So the first thing to understand, Michael, is we are winning in the courts. And people need to understand that. Judge Gia Cobb in the district court in the District of Columbia just halted their efforts for the purposes of the internal revenue system and for no other purposes. What are they using that information for?
Can I just say, Congressman Chairman, I made a decision not to go to law school, and somehow you have me reading U.S. code on a Sunday morning.
It's a good day when you do that.
Thank you. Thank you for the free education. I mean, what's interesting to me is the Nobody Elected Elon Musk Act that you and your colleagues are putting forward. It's one of several pieces of legislation promoted by Democrats to try to hold Elon Musk accountable. Here's the question. Have any of your Republican colleagues showed any interest in joining you in this effort toward accountability?
No, at this point.
Why don't people respond to questions like that by saying, that's a stupid question? Move on. Of course, Jamie Raskin's not going to do that. But the truth is, a lot of these talking heads, they really, I think they were absent the day that brains were handed out. And the truth is, I think sometimes if you're a Democrat, you really are suffering from a mental disease. What a dumb question. Anyway, let's continue.
They're either, out there cheerleading for Elon Musk, or more and more of them are getting real quiet because they see the public does not like this. The public does not like the idea that a guy who would not even be constitutionally eligible to run for president is acting as president, a guy who, if he were president, would be impeached immediately because he's taking billions of dollars in foreign government emoluments from all over the world. And some people have actually been talking about impeaching President Elon Musk right now.
Let's impeach Elon Musk, though he hasn't been elected to do anything, and he's acting at the behest of the U.S. president. This is just amazing, my friends. And one of the reasons why you're seeing so much opposition to Elon Musk is he is exposing the graft that exists in the American government. I mean, when you have a budget that is as big as ours, there are people that are lining their pockets. And just think about this. There are members of Congress that they make around $200,000 a year, and yet they are multimillionaires. How did that happen? You don't suppose that they have insider information that might be helpful if you're trading in the stock market. You don't think that maybe they're getting some kickbacks. You don't think that maybe USAID is funneling money all over the planet, and it might be pretty easy to get your hands on some of it. The fact is that Democrats, and I shouldn't just say Democrats, Democrats and Republicans have been lining their pockets with U.S. taxpayer money for years, for probably shoot, I don't know, as long as the government has been around. But Elon Musk is just exposing where that waste, fraud, and abuse is coming from. And the truth is, my friends, to a smaller degree, we have that in Wyoming too. Now, I don't think that there's tremendous graft that's going on, but just think about the huge bureaucracy that we have. And I'll give you one example. We have a number of private organizations known as associations. And there was a bill, 336. It didn't get heard, but the point of the bill was to ban the use of taxpayer dollars to pay for all of these private associations. The reason being is taxpayer dollars should not be used by organizations to lobby against the best interests of taxpayers. And you have all these private lobbying outfits that are using taxpayer money for their operations. And the number I got from just state associations every single year was $3.7 million that the state of Wyoming pays to all of these organizations. If you look at school boards across the state of Wyoming, and this is statewide, it's $3.2 million. The County Commissioners Association, that's $500,000. Think about all of that money that's going to lobbyists that you, my friends, are paying for. So while it may not be as big as scope as at the federal level, it still exists, and it's still something that we have to root out. Thankfully, we have a conservative House of Representatives that's up to the task, and they've been doing a bang-up job. So anyway, my friends, that burns up another busy broadcast hour on the program. Make sure that you don't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. The podcast, it's published every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. I've got a great episode that I'm going to publish right after this program. It's my attempt at bipartisanship, an interview with Representative Ken Clouston. We got a new game plan, or I have a plan, and the whole idea is just to ask a couple questions and to just let members of the other side, or shall we say not so conservative members of the legislature, just let them talk and just insert a question here or there. And I'm telling you, my friends, it is absolutely revealing. So don't miss the podcast today. I'll be back tomorrow with Cowboy State Politics Live. And remember, you can always listen to back episodes of Cowboy State Politics Live. Just go to the website. Go up at the top, and there's a link that says live replay. And right there, you can get all of the Cowboy State Politics Live episodes. You can just listen until your heart's content. But for now, my friends, from the depths of the middle swamp, I'm David Iverson, and this is Cowboy State Politics.